I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you for making this a part of your day and a part of your week. I hope you're having a good week. We are in Mark chapter 11 tonight. Mark chapter 11, if you want to turn in your Bible there. If you have it on your phone or your tablet, you can find it on there and scroll. Just one announcement, it's a reminder, and this is for Saturday, that there will be a small service for Pete Cernick this Saturday at 2 p.m. At the North Raleigh Church of Christ in their little garden area. This will be where we will be able to put his remains and have sort of a graveside is the best way I can describe it. But that's going to be at 2 o'clock. So if you can make that would be good. And it's just an encouragement for Faye. But if not, just as a reminder, that at some point in time at a later date, when Faye is able to let us know, we will have a memorial service for him here. And that'll be more of a full service in that regard. So if you can make it out Saturday at 2 o'clock, the garden service for Pete Cernick, and that's at North Raleigh at their garden area. So just be reminded of that. I know that'll come out as an announcement later this week too, as a reminder. So glad you're here. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you, Father, for this day. Thank you for the safety. Thank you for a good day. Thank you for the sunshine, the brief moment of rain that washed away the pollen. We're thankful to you for these blessings that are not small. We may view them as small or big, but every blessing that comes from you is good, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for this time that's been set aside to gather in the middle of the week to encourage each other, build each other up, and in this case, to study a portion of your word, specifically from Mark chapter 11, and this specific episode in the life of Christ. And as our prayer has been throughout this entire study, as it is the same today, Father, that through our study that we will not just have information given to us, but more than that, it'll be information, it'll be knowledge that works in our heart and our mind and transforms us into the image of Christ. So that when we leave and we go out into our workplaces, our homes, our schools, and wherever else that we may go, we are able to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world, and to reveal Jesus to those around us through our words, through our actions, our treatment of other people, and to live after the example that he has provided for us. Where we pray for your blessing on our time of study tonight, and it's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, so Mark chapter 11 is where we are tonight. Mark chapter 11, if you didn't get a chance to read, it's the triumphal entry. So we're just a few weeks behind the calendar, what we had. So I'm going to give you a couple of maps. One map and then just several images to try to put things in perspective for us. So Mark relays that Jesus and his group, his 12, perhaps a crowd with him, are on the Jericho Road, and they're coming in from Jericho. And they are going to pass through a place called Bethany and Bethpage. So you can kind of see, I tried to make it as big as I could. You can kind of see Bethany. So just imagine that Jericho Road kind of making a loop and coming in. So this is east of Jerusalem. This is east of the temple, east of, so Jesus will be coming in from the east. Bethany is about 2 miles outside of Jerusalem. And for majority of us here, we should know that Bethany is kind of a home away from home for Jesus and his disciples. This is where his, at least what we know of, what we could probably say his best friend Lazarus was, where Mary and Martha are located. So all three of them are very close friends of Jesus. So he's anointed here. Matthew and Luke and John all record that Jesus is anointed prior to his arrest and his death. Mark will put that a little bit later, but that's kind of what's going to happen here if you wanted to look at that. We'll see that in a couple of weeks. But Jesus is anointed here about 2 miles out, and then he'll travel in. He'll go to Bethpage, which the best way it's been described is kind of like a suburb of Jerusalem. So it's not necessarily Jerusalem, but a suburb, some kind of the outer area, if you will. Probably about a mile, maybe a mile and a half at the most outside of Jerusalem. So Jesus is going to pass by through there. If you can't make that out, that's called the Mount of Olives. So that is going to be real significant for us in this last week of Jesus' life. You've got the Garden of Gethsemane that's right here, and then you've got the entrance into Jerusalem and into the temple. So as Jesus enters in, and we've got this crowd, we kind of think, oh, okay, it's this huge parade. He's got this huge crowd that's coming in. That most likely what they did is that they followed, but as he got close, so he's probably not a half a mile out where the crowd gets ready to welcome him in into the city and into the temple with the palm branches, Hosanna, all of those that we're really not going to take time to look at. But he goes and he sends 2 disciples ahead for a colt or donkey in fulfillment of Zechariah 9, verse 9. And this was to be a representation of peace. Your king is coming, but it is a king of peace. So this is a very public political move by Jesus. This is one of the very few political moves that he will make in his ministry. Most of the time, he sticks with the spiritual, but this is very political. This is Rome understood king language. Jerusalem, the Jewish people understood king language. Jesus takes that and turns it on its head. He is a king. He will embrace being a king, but he will not be like the kings that came before him. He will not be David, who has blood on his hands. He will not be Solomon, who is wise but foolish at the same time. He will not be Rehoboam. He will not be any of these individuals. He's not going to be Caesar and demand tribute and praise and honor. He's not going to be any of those. He is going to be a king of humility and peace, which tells you or tells us that those of us who claim Jesus as king, we should be people, a kingdom of humility and peace as well. However, that doesn't mean that Jesus isn't going to be this conquering hero. Later on in the book of Revelation, in chapter 6:2, and then also in 19:11, you know what Jesus will come back riding on when he comes back? He will be on a white horse. So this moment in this triumphal entry into Jerusalem is a symbol of peace. I have come to bring peace, specifically God and man. Well, what's going to happen at the end of the week will provide peace between God and humanity, if humanity wants it. When he comes back, he's not going to be this peaceful, this loving individual. Yes, he's going to be those, but he is not going to be this one that is going to be innocent in humility. He is going to be this conquering king of the entire world. And John will see this vision that I see the one riding the white horse. And so just because it doesn't happen the way the Jews thought the first time, they were halfway right. Because it's going to happen the second time. You and I are not privileged to see him enter into the city on the foal of a colt. You and I will see him coming in the clouds on a white horse. That is a huge, huge thing. Don't miss either one of those. I mentioned already he's going to be anointed. In Mark 14, 3 through 9, we'll cover that there. Something that's unique, and Scott and I kind of exchanged a note this week with this. Well, Scott, I kind of put you on the spot. Do you mind sharing with everyone with the anointing what that would have meant?
Well, it's just some of the reading I've had from a Jewish perspective on this was that the habit of kings, when they were in procession or going out to a crowd, they would wear their robes, and their robes would be perfumed. That was sort of part of their royalty.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And in a crowd, it was said, as what I read, that while you may not get a good look at a king, you might actually smell him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if Jesus John says Jesus was anointed the day before he comes. Mm-hmm. And so that it's a possible other way of announcing that a king is coming.
Yes. Another way to announce that he's coming and that you are in his presence. You may not be close enough to see or to touch, but you are close enough to smell what's coming from him. And I mentioned to Scott, in addition to that, do y'all remember in 2 Corinthians 3, where Christ always leads us in triumphal procession to spread the fragrance of the knowledge of him everywhere? This is what we are to do as well. The way that we conduct ourselves among unbelievers through grace and humility and love and truth, commitment and faithfulness, all the things that we talk about, we spread the fragrance of the one that we've been in the presence of. We spread that fragrance as well, that we're so close to the King that we look like Him, we sound like Him, and in this case, we would almost smell like Him in terms of the way our conduct would be. So that's a fascinating way of being able, so to a certain extent, don't raise your armpit, and everybody at home is trying to do that. I wonder what I smell like today. No, that's not the case. But when we act like Jesus out of compassion, treating others the way we want to be treated, forgiving, loving, being patient, kind, all these things and so much more, we are spreading the fragrance of Jesus everywhere we go. And we're going to start tying in some of these things. So I just wanted to put that there. So Jesus would have entered. He would have come in. So I got this one. It's kind of fuzzy, but I got this one because of the road that you would have seen right here. So this is a model, but somebody's building this model and give an idea. So Jesus would have come in to Jerusalem and come into the temple from this direction. So again, he's still coming in from east. As he's entering in, he's still kind of in the Jerusalem area. People are still there, so you can kind of see the road. It's easy to see how he would have the palm branches and again receive the praise, all of that. He would have come in right here. He would have entered in the temple area, the Temple Mount, through this gate. It's called the Gate Called Beautiful, or the Eastern Gate. You know that famously from Acts 3, where James and John encounter an invalid. Silver and gold we don't have to give to you, but what we do, we give to you in the name of Christ. Stand up and walk, is what happened. So this is what that gate would have looked like as Jesus would have come in. This is leading him into the temple. He's already in Jerusalem. This would have led him into the temple, because the first thing he does as king, entering into his city, is to go to his place of worship. Not his place of worship in terms like you and I, but the temple is his. The temple is his. So he would have entered into this area. So just kind of give you a better picture of this. So Jesus would have entered. So again, he's coming in from this direction right here. The Gate Called Beautiful is right there. So he would have entered in. This is the court of Gentiles. So this is where all the Gentiles would have been. Court of women kind of would have been right here on this outside of this wall. Then you've got the court of men kind of separated right here. So all Jewish men could go into this. And then you've got the court of the priests. So all the priests could have gone into there. That's where the altar was. And then as you go in, you've got the holy place. And then inside you've got the most holy place. So degrees of holiness. But everything is distinctly separated. Gentiles, you are here. Women, you are here. Priests, men, you are here. Priests, you are here. So everybody is segregated. Everybody has their place. Jesus walking into the temple would see all of this, and of course he would have seen it for 3.5 years. So let's pick up there, Mark 11, and let's look at verse 11 and following. Mark 11. Start with verse 11. So he entered Jerusalem, so I already showed you that direction, and went into the temple. So he's walking through that gate. He's walking into that court of Gentiles. And when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. So he's going back out. And so he goes in, gets a real good look of his place, gets a real good look of the people, heads right back out to Bethany. So he's made that 2-mile trip already. He's going to make another 2-mile trip back. On the following day, so this is on Monday. So verse 12 is on a Monday. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry. So he's making his way back into Jerusalem. And seeing in the distance a fig tree and leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard it. So let's pause right there. So this interesting exchange with Jesus and this fig tree. So he looked around at everything in verse 11. So he sees everything, surveying the land of the temple, goes back to Bethany, follows up with that on a Monday, coming back into Jerusalem. And we find out in the end of verse 13 and 14, Jesus is hungry. So again, we've got this emotional state of Jesus. And we have created this term in our language in the last 5 years or so, that when somebody is hungry, they start getting agitated or angry, and we call that what? Hangry. Well, guess what Jesus is? He's hangry. It's morning time. Probably hadn't had breakfast, but he knows everything is going. He doesn't have anything to eat. I'm hungry. He sees a fig tree. And it's got leaves. But it's not time for it. It's odd. So fig trees would have sprouted most likely in March or April on the calendar. So that kind of gives us a time period of what's going on. So if you've ever wondered about Easter, when Easter falls and kind of just on our regular calendar, just put your own personal thought for a moment. We're probably more accurate with our understanding of the resurrection and when it happened and what we call Easter than we are anything else. Because fig trees would have sprouted around March, April. You got other things that are going on. So it's, again, late March, early, mid-April when all of this is happening. Jesus is hungry. He sees this unfruitful tree, and he is very frustrated with it. This isn't, oh, may you never sprout anymore. That's not the tone that he takes. Why? Why is it just hunger that's got the best of Jesus? Is there more to what's going on with this? What do you think is happening? This curious exchange? What do you think?
Well, the author goes out of his way to say, and his disciples heard.
Okay.
So it seems potentially to be a lesson.
Okay, so we're getting the groundwork. Okay, there's some sort of lesson, because he's not muttering this to himself. It's not a thinking to himself. This isn't mumbling under his breath. This is out loud. The 12 hear this. So we've got the groundbreaking of a lesson. So this isn't Jesus hungry and just, frustration's gotten the best of him, even though he's still frustrated. There's a lesson to be learned with this. So put a little pin on that, because Jesus is about to go to the temple. So what does Jesus do when he goes to the temple on a Monday? This is that famous scene that everybody is familiar with.
Overturn the tables, and he had a sweep or a whip, and he's whipping.
Okay, all right. So we get he gets a whip, kind of hand makes it right then and there. He overturns the tables, and he chases the animals out of the temple. So let's get into the specifics. What tables does he turn over? There are two that are mentioned by Mark.
Money changers.
Okay, we got money changers and... Okay, the dove sellers or the pigeon sellers. So why those two tables? Why those specific two? This is enough to wait. Whatever is happening at those two tables.
In a sense, right? Weren't they charging too much for as the people were going in to sacrifice, they were upping the price? Or it seems like I remember something.
Yes. Okay, so it's around Passover. So remember, Passover is one of 3 feasts in which every Jew is obligated to travel into Jerusalem. You have to be there. Tabernacles is the other, and Pentecost is the other. So you have Tabernacles, Passover, and then you have Pentecost, which is to come after. If you're coming from way out there, are you going to travel with your animals? Most likely not. You're just going to exchange your money, you're going to buy the animal, and you're going to participate in the sacrifices the way you have. What's curious is that bulls and goats and heifers are not mentioned at all. It's the table of pigeons. Why?
That's for the poor people.
Okay. So if we read the Levitical law, if you read in Leviticus, the way that God made provision for the poor, because the poor are not excused from this. They still have to participate. But if you were poor, there were one of 2 ways in which you participated in the sacrifices. Either one, if you were extremely poor, you offered some sort of flour, some sort of grain, something. But you still had to offer, which is still fascinating. Even poverty doesn't excuse you from offering to the Lord, but the Lord meets you. So flour or some sort of grain is offered, but the other are pigeons. By the way, do you know what two significant people offered pigeons on the 8th day of their son's birth when they traveled to the temple? Mary and Joseph. What does that tell you about Jesus in his childhood? He was poor. They were poor. So why would Jesus have gotten angry with money changers and the poor and the pigeons? Yes, sir.
What I know, or at least what I think I know, is that the money changers were set up because they wanted to use Jewish currency,
Yes.
okay? And because they considered everything else unclean.
Yes.
Now, this was, I believe, an annual thing, that they did this every year, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a tradition. And they would not, all these blessings or the sacrifice. And it started out innocent enough. I mean, you have to understand that they did not want, they just thought that their other money was unclean. And they wanted to keep everything purified.
Sure.
For these sacrifices. And so they had everybody exchange their money. Well, of course, as time went on, they started raising the price of the exchange rate, put it that way.
Yes.
And so they were profiting from this. And the same thing as far as all the animals or the doves or whatever. It was just all to gain profit for their sale. And so it went away from what it was actually about to make money.
Yes. The whole idea is making money on both ends. So we'll make money on the currency exchange because you're right. We need and must deal with the temple tax. That's going to come down a little bit later with who do we pay taxes to. But the temple tax is in place. But then we want to keep the money pure. We're not going to use Rome's money. We're too holy to use Rome's money. So we're going to use ours. But in that, so you're right. They increase the exchange rate. So for every this equals one of these. So those of us that kind of deal with the markets, the U.S. dollar is worth blank in wherever you want to look at, whatever it may be. So on one hand, they do that. So in the exchange rate, you make money in the exchange. Then you add that price to the sale of the pigeon or the dove, and guess what you've just done? You've made more money, but at whose expense? Poor. Which, by the way, we're going to see just in the next few days of Jesus' life. He will meet a poor widow. Does she have 2 mites because that's literally all she has? Or does she have 2 mites because she went through a currency exchange and she lost some of what happened? Just something to put there. The interesting thing about all of this is that this road that Jesus travels, so I want to back right back up to this thing. This road that Jesus travels right here that would have taken him into the temple is a very heavily populated road. Again, Acts 3, that's why that man is there trying to get on. So people are coming in. That exchange rate. I can get some money while it's there. So this is a very, very heavily populated entryway into the temple. These currency tables, if you're going to set up somewhere, where do you think you're going to set up? Right on the inside of that gate, so that the first thing that the person sees is you. Right? They got to exchange their money because we're not going to use Roman money. Look, here comes these poor, literally poor individuals. Let's find a way to do this. So all of this takes place, and what does Jesus say? You have done what to my house? You have made it a den of robbers. You have made it a den of robbers because, one, you have set up right here. You've set up shop right here at the very entryway of the temple. So now where everybody's already segregated because of the court of Gentiles, the court of women, the court of men, now you're segregated by your economic status, and everybody knows whether you're rich or poor as soon as you walk into the temple proper. Everybody already knows. There is no decency. There is no dignity. You lose all dignity when you walk in to the table, the money exchange tables. It's just right there. Everybody sees it. the person behind you, the person in front of you. We've all been at the checkout line where our debit card was not approved. We have been there. And we have been there when it happened to others. Now imagine that you're walking in and you have traveled days, weeks, months to get where you're going. And you got to exchange the money and you got to buy the pigeon, and everybody knows you got to buy the pigeon. Do you have any dignity going in to the presence of God in the temple whatsoever? None. You have made my Father's house, you have made my house a den of robbers, because not only have you robbed people of money, but you have robbed them of their dignity. You have robbed them of their, other integrity, other words, all sorts of things that are at play here. This is what you have done. All of these are going to make sense when we tie them in together on this. So you've got the currency exchange of the temple, you've got the pigeons, and here's one of those pre-lessons. At this moment, the only fruit of the temple is to make money. That's the only fruit that is there. There is no other fruit that is offered that the temple can portray. The temple can portray, we're doing this. Those who are running the temple can say, we're doing that. But when it's time to get close and take a good look, i.e. Mark 11:11, he looked around, which means that Jesus saw this on a Sunday and slept with it until Monday and knew exactly what he was going to be doing. The only thing that the temple is actually producing is money. Making money. That's the only thing that it's producing. It's giving the image that it's doing other things, but that's the only thing. So verses 17 through 19, somebody take a quick look, or everybody just take a quick look. And, go ahead. Yes, ma'am. While everybody's looking at that.
Yeah, if you can back up, well, I'm missing something. Why did Jesus curse the fig tree when it didn't have fruit out of season?
Because it's portraying something that it's not. The leaf has kind of bloomed, which means that the fig should be there with the leaf. There is no fig. It's portraying something that it's not. It's saying that it's a healthy tree. I can provide you what you need. I got a fig. Just come and pick it up. Jesus gets close. There is no fig. They normally would have, but there's something that it either sprouted early or it's, something's going on where it would have, normally would have waited until mid to late April, maybe early May. But for whatever reason, this fig tree is early in its portrayal of production. David?
That makes it a frightening lesson.
We're fixing to tie it all in, yes. Not just a lesson, but lessons in this. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's interesting that he says, my house. He's already taken ownership.
Yes.
And I noticed that I have a footnote that indicates that casting out was a kingly act,
Yes.
which I thought was interesting.
Yes, it is. So go ahead, David.
So this is a provocative question, and Happy Hour wanted me to ask it. Who built this temple?
This would be Herod's temple.
So this temple was not authorized by the Old Testament.
Yes, it was built under when you would have had that second deportation coming back. So under Haggai, the prophet Haggai, the foundation's laid and everybody's crying because it doesn't have the glory. Herod just added to this and just made it more spectacular. Oh, okay, dude, just...
We jump hoops to talk about what is authorized in the Bible. And I bet you a lot of us wouldn't walk into that temple because it's not fully authorized by the Old Testament. But Jesus did.
Well, it is authorized. Yeah, I mean, the fact that God doesn't do anything whatsoever, and he gives people the means to rebuild that. So you've got Solomon. Okay, so David wants to build it, can't, because he's got too much blood. It's reserved for Solomon. Solomon builds it, lasts, even through the divided kingdom, is destroyed. They come back, and Nehemiah, Ezra, the prophets, and kind of some of the minor prophets that come back, they are authorized to build that, because a prophet would not have allowed that to continue. So the authorization is in the fact that God is silent on that.
It was 300, 400, 500 years later?
He is, most likely. But he's still authorized by Jewish descent, Jewish blood.
To repair.
Because it would be a repair and then an addition.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would still have that. Yeah, you would have that. So Jesus has no problem entering back into this temple. Because it's again, Passover, tabernacles, you still have to have a place. So all of this is still there in that regard. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So very quickly, verses 17, 18, and 19, someone explain Jesus' teaching. So we've kind of already alluded to what he said, but he's teaching something through what he said. What is it? Or what are some things?
So one thing is that they had set up almost certainly in the court of the Gentiles only. And he quotes this passage from Isaiah chapter 56 as talking specifically about foreigners.
Yes.
That are those who obey the Sabbath laws and things like that, those who, they might call them proselytes, right?
Yes.
So they set up the only part of the temple that those people are allowed in. So the only place that they're allowed, the only place they're allowed to worship and be in that religious context has become a dirty marketplace.
Yes. Yes, it has. It's possible Cornelius is there from Acts 10. It's possible that the Ethiopian eunuch is there. All of this, so you're right, God makes a place, even though they're segregated, and yes, the law has its reasons for either, even those who are non-Jewish have a place, and that's Jesus' point. Everybody has a place in the house of God, and you've just made it hard. You've made it near impossible. You've polluted it, you've ruined it, you've made it difficult for someone, even if they can't participate in the sacrifice, even if they're not under the covering of animal sacrifices, even if they just wanted to come and pray, they can't even do that because you guys are standing right there at the gate and you're more concerned about money than you are concerned about anything else. That's why he says, my house it's a house for all nations. The whole point of the temple was to shine the light to all of Gentile and pagan nations that they would come to God. Well, if you come to God and you find out that everybody's standing there, how many of us in recent memory have stood in a line and it got too long and we said, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. And we left. We left. How many Gentiles stood in line? Why would we even go? If it's going to be made hard for us to come here, why would we even go? If it's going to be made difficult, why would we even go? We want to just offer a simple prayer like Brian mentioned. Why would we even go? You ready for all the lessons that we're going to tie into this? Because the very next day, Peter's like, hey, look, what you said to the fig tree, it happened. As if he's just amazed that what Jesus said happens. They're still learning. So here's a couple of things that I want you to write down if you want to do this. Lesson 1. This looks back to the temple and it looks back to the nation of Israel. In Mark 12, in the first 12 verses, Jesus is going to tell a parable of an owner of a vineyard who leases it out. And he leases it out to tenants and says, I want you to take care of it and I'm going to come back. And he keeps sending messenger after messenger. Hey, I want to check in. I want to see how things are going. And they end up doing what to the messengers? I know you know the parable. All right, they kill him. It just, you know what? We're going to kill him. He'll be none the wiser. And the owner of the vineyard said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send my son because that's the one person they'll respect. That's the one person they'll honor. Sends the son. What do? They kill him. And then he comes back and he has judgment on top because I gave you this. And there's certain words. He lent the vineyard to them. All of this is a mirror image. It's a parallel of the temple and the nation of Israel. God's temple is the building. But if we read our Old Testament, God's temple was the nation. The nation was God's temple. And neither one is producing the desired fruit that God designed it to produce. Neither one. The vineyard, the temple that is the nation, they killed prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet. I know what. I'll send my son, Jesus, son of David, that blind Bartimaeus said last week. He recognized the son. Guess what they're going to do to the son 3 days from now? They're going to kill him. The only fruit of the temple is to make money, and the only fruit of the nation is to kill. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't made their contributions. We have the Old Testament because of them. We have a foundation for Christianity because of them. But this, right here, this moment, is when the crowd turns on Jesus. You want to know how does a crowd welcome him on a Sunday and cry out on a Friday, crucify him? Because he overturned the money changers and chased the animals out and kept people from walking back and forth. There's a lesson for us, church. There's a lesson for us. Because the disciple, individually, if we are disciples, we are the temple of God. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 through 20 says we're the temple. This body, this physical body is your body, my body. The physical body is a temple. The Spirit of God literally dwells within us. What we do with this body, what we do to this body, who is impacted by the things we do with this body, it's either going to help people come to Christ or it's going to drive them away. And we already see how Jesus feels and what he believes when his temple hinders instead of helps. My life today, what I have done this day in this body, has it helped or has it hurt somebody in coming to God? Did I use this temple? What did I use this temple for today? What was it for? Was it just to make money at a job? Was it just to give into a self-gratification or self-desire? Was the whole purpose of this day and this body, what was it for? Who was helped and who was hurt? We're that temple. But then collectively, as the church is the temple too. Revelation 1, 12 and 13 and verse 20, guess who's among this temple? He walks among the lampstand. And you know what he's looking for? He's looking for fruit. You know what we're to produce? I think I read a list somewhere in the New Testament that says the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and kindness. So to Miss Pam, what she was asking earlier, why did he curse the fig tree? Because the fig tree said, I'm producing. I'm producing. Maybe I'm out here saying, I'm producing. Maybe we're out here saying, we're producing. But then here comes the owner of the vineyard. Here comes the master of the temple. And he takes a good look. And he says, you know what? What I see on the surface and what I see on the inside are two different stories. You say you're producing fruit, but I don't see it. So that list in Galatians 5, what we're studying about on Sunday nights with that list in 2 Peter 1, all these things, here it is. David, you were raising your hand a second ago.
I don't follow the comments about you stop the people from going in and out and overturning the tables. Can you elaborate on that? I didn't get it.
No, the idea is just simply, hey, we're going to pick up our stuff and we're just going to move to another location. If you're overturning my table, I'm just going to gather my stuff and I'm going to just move over to that side.
I made the poor people mad at him.
Not the poor, no, but it would have made the middle class or rich religious leaders. Yeah, yep, yep. One other lesson. Jesus is going to tell the disciples this is a lesson of prayer and fasting. Peter, you're really amazed that this is what happened. I could tell you that if you just get up and if you pray and you have faith enough, you tell one mountain to move to another side. This is what can happen. There's a huge difference and chasm that exists with doubt in the heart and belief in the heart. If you doubt, nothing's going to happen. It don't matter what you think. If you have doubt the size of a mustard seed, no wonder you're spinning your wheels. But if you got faith, again, we've been talking about faith for the past couple of weeks. If you have faith in the right object, in this case the right person, guess what you can do? You can do anything, which includes produce the fruit that He wants you to produce. I can do all things through Christ. Well, what does He want me to do as His temple? What fruit does He want me to produce? I can do that. This is also a lesson on forgiveness, is what Jesus will say, verses 20 through 26. Now, I'm not sure how He ties this in. I'm going to leave it to you to kind of wrestle with. But when it comes to forgiveness, and we've kind of dealt with this in the last chapter, can the 12 forgive each other for being power hungry? Can the 12 forgive one another when they fall short of expectations? Is there still an opportunity for the rich young ruler to be forgiven? He walked away sorrowful, but is there an opportunity for him to be forgiven? How about the religious leaders? Can they be forgiven? What about Friday evening, after they've taken his body and wrapped it up and put him in a tomb? Can they still be forgiven of that? Acts 2 says yes. Well, if all of that we say can be forgiven, then what happens among us in the temple? Sometimes the hurt that we create, sometimes the hindrances that we put in front of one another, sometimes the things that hurt the temple instead of helping the temple, those can be forgiven too. Can money changers be forgiven of a pursuit of money? Sure they can. Doesn't make Jesus happy that they're doing it, but can they be forgiven? Can Peter be forgiven when he draws his sword and cuts off the ear of Malchus? The lesson keeps going. Can the person that you're struggling with right now, can they be forgiven of the things they have said and done? Can you be forgiven of the things you have said and done? Go ahead, David.
They can, and it makes God happy when they are.
Yeah. You know why? Because the temple, that's the fruit. That's a piece of the fruit that He's looking for. Church, we're the temple. And we're either going to make it easy for people or we'll make it hard. We're either going to be the money changers who are setting up shop, making it hard for people to come into the kingdom and into the church by virtue of attitude or treatment of others. Or we're going to produce the fruit of the Spirit and others that help people come to God. But we're the temple. And what we do and what we say matters. These are the lessons of a cursed fig tree and overturned tables. They're yours. Hope you have a good night.